Defense rules the day as Vandy makes their first bowl game since 2018 with a win over Auburn. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into a special edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm Corey Burton. I'm your host. And Vandy just pulled a massive win. They get win number 6. That means they are bowl eligible. 17-7 over Auburn. Phenomenal game, especially if you're into defense and special teams. That was about as beautiful of a game as you can get in that regard. Offense, well, it's there's a lot to be improved on, but when they needed it the most, they made the plays. They made that death march down in the fourth quarter with 8:53 off the clock, putting Auburn in a really bad position and taking the lead. But great game, man, all around. And this was one of those that Vandy was going to need to gut it out because the road environment is what it is. Auburn is always a tough place to play, so it is. That's kind of how it goes there in Auburn, and Vandy withstood all of their best shots and continued to press, continued to come after them on defense, and the plan was played out masterfully. But before we get into any of that, this episode is presented by 5 Hour Energy. That's right, our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to get and power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot is made for super fans just like us. The fans who are first in the parking lot and who are last to leave, we see you. All right. So this is the latest 5 Hour Energy moment. The grueling drive that took place in the fourth quarter, 8:53 left or 8:53 off of the clock with that drive. Just an amazing 5 Hour Energy moment for Vandy, and that sideline got hyped every time they made a first down on that drive. It was the standard Vandy offense. So 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for a big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long, which is why limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy. Available at 5hourenergy.com. Shipped nationwide. So, want to recap the week that was. The comments are open. This is live. What's up, Jays? The comments are live. I want to recap kind of what the game plan was for this week before we kind of get into the tail of the tape here, because it was an odd game statistically. And it should not have happened the way it did if you just look at pure stats. But there's a lot of things in play here with that. But the game plan this week was control the tempo, control the game. I thought Vanderbilt did a masterful job of that. They were able to control the clock, control the field position. Jesse Mirko had an amazing effort there with his punting, and the punt return game was amazing. And, of course, Brock Taylor knocking through those field goals. So controlling the tempo and controlling the game, I thought Vandy did a really good job of doing that. They were able to find things in the passing game. Wasn't always pretty, wasn't always consistent, but they were able to find just enough in the pass game to keep a very athletic defense from Auburn honest, right? They limited Jarquez Hunter, Peyton Thorne in the run game. Vandy was able to lock them down, and they weren't able to do much outside of one drive. Auburn's offense really, they just got a whole bunch of empty yards, and that was it. And then they also managed the hostile road environment. I thought they did a phenomenal job of that. They just stayed even keel throughout all of it, and they just continued to pressure Peyton Thorne. They continued to come after Auburn's offense, and it really kind of flustered Hugh Freeze. And Auburn got a lot of penalties as well. I'm interested to see kind of what the numbers are on that. This team was definitely banged up. Here's the recap, right? And D-Stock is banged up, but again, they get it done. If you look at the total yards, man, it's almost 100 more yards for Auburn, and they scored 10 less points. Rushing yards were about even. The passing yards were all in Auburn's favor. First downs were in Auburn's favor. And, of course, turnovers were in Vandy's favor and time of possession. Zach Blackerby and I talked about this. They said that time of possession was going to be the biggest factor, and it was. Vandy held it for 30 minutes. Auburn held it for 28. Those 2 extra minutes were all that Vandy needed, right? So here's the thing. Defense leads the way. They suffocated Auburn. Peyton Thorne was not able to get anything going. And they just kind of swarmed and did their job, and they limited them to just moving the ball between the 20s. And once they got through, Auburn missed 2 field goal opportunities as well that would have put points on the board. But for the most part, if the ball wasn't around, the field position was totally in Vandy's favor. Seemed like Auburn was starting inside their own 20 a lot. Offense guts it through. Special teams was amazing. So this game was just all out phenomenal for Vandy. I think they stuck to the game plan of making Peyton Thorne win the game, and he couldn't. And Hugh Freeze, I thought he knew that, but they didn't force the ball to Jarquez Hunter, which they should have. They forced the ball instead into Peyton Thorne's hands, and outside of one drive where he hit Fairchild with what was kind of a bad pass, and he not Fairchild. He made the tight end made a great play, turned, broke a couple tackles, and dove for the pylon. Outside of that drive, Auburn was not really able to do much there. So defense, I thought, had a really good game plan, suffocate the run. They were throwing bodies. They were throwing bodies at the run. They forced the running backs to stop their momentum. They brought people off the edge. They confused Peyton Thorne. They were able to get pressure on him, force him, flush him, force him to make bad throws, and they were able to get in on him and get him to the ground as well. So all around, man, really good game plan from the defense. And when Auburn kept giving them their best shot, they kept adjusting. That was the thing that Clark Lee did a really good job of, is they just kept adjusting to what Auburn wanted to do. And Auburn didn't seem to really have many answers. Vandy was throwing a ton of pressure packages at them. They were giving them a whole bunch of different looks. They were confusing them. The receivers couldn't quite get separation. And I thought fundamentally, the DBs did a really good job of punching the ball out in the pass game. They played a really clean game for the most part on defense, with creating, also not committing any penalties really, but creating opportunities for them to create separation from the ball and to create more snaps for Auburn, to where they had to really grind the ball down the field. And Auburn proved that they could not do that. So that was a masterful game plan by the defense. Also offensively, though, Pavia, Cedric Alexander combined had 2 functioning legs, and they just couldn't. They weren't the same. They couldn't get the same burst. There's plays they made earlier in the season that they couldn't make. Cedric Alexander didn't see the field a whole lot throughout the game because he's banged up, and they still were able to find enough in the passing game. And you knew Auburn was you knew they were going to focus on Eli Stowers. You knew they were going to cover him up. You knew they were going to play him tough. They did, but Quincy Skinner, Junior Sherrill, AJ Newberry were able to find room. Diego Pavia was able to make enough plays to really get this team going. And they were kind of stuck in the mud up until that last drive where they marched it down the field, almost 9 minutes of possession, 14 plays, and scored a touchdown, helped by a defensive pass interference and helped by a special teams penalty that gave them automatic first downs. But they made the plays. They made the plays when they had to, and that was kind of the key to it. Special teams, you get to get that go-ahead field goal. They had a great return that was preceded by a phenomenal punt that was down at the 1, and then they were able to keep Auburn pinned on the half-yard line, get a punt, get into scoring range, get into the red zone actually with a good return, and then they were able to get points out of that drive. But it was just an all-around gutsy performance by a team that needed that really badly. Because if you looked at what happened last year and how this team looked last year, that was exactly what they needed for this program to hopefully take it to the next level. NIL is going to start kicking in. Transfers are going to start saying, "Hey, this team is a team that I want to play for." And this is something that Vandy can take advantage of now. And Clark Lee, say what you want to say about him, he made it all happen. He had to make the hires. He had to accept the transfers and offer the transfers. He had to make all of these changes himself. Otherwise, this doesn't happen, right? Otherwise, we're stuck at like 1 and whatever. and he's probably looking for a new job, and they've got an interim coach or all that stuff. So the criticism, he took it to heart. He made changes, and he made it happen. And I'm proud of Clark Lee for doing that. I think we found something here. Jerry Kill and Tim Beck, they might have been the magic touch. They might have been the Midas touch there for Clark Lee. And that, hey, you still have to give credit to Clark Lee. I know there's people out there that want to say, well, it's just because of Kill and Beck. Well, Clark Lee had to sign off on that. Clark Lee had to make that hire. So that's something that that's going to be fun. So this season, as it plays out, is going to be fun down the stretch to see kind of how many wins they can stack up. I'm curious now to see what bowl Vandy's going to wind up in. That's the next thing, is who's this bowl game going to be against? Can they carry that momentum into the bowl season, and then out of bowl season into the off season, where transfer portals and recruiting is key. So, but I'm gonna stop it right there. This game was phenomenal. Again, Vandy wins 17-7. These recaps are pretty quick, but Vandy wins at 17-7. Defense leads the way. They're going bowling for the first time since 2018. Phenomenal. Leave your comments there. Appreciate you guys listening. At Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. Find, like, subscribe, and we'll break this thing down further throughout the week as we get ready for South Carolina, who's up next, and then LSU and Tennessee down the road. So with that, anchor down, big win. Behave yourselves. Have a great weekend. Have fun celebrating. Be responsible. And we'll see you back here on the next episode of Locked On Vandy on the Locked On Podcast Network. Anchor down. Peace.